What's up, everybody? Welcome back to your favorite New York Jets subscription podcast, Badlands. I'm your host, Joe Caporoso, joined for the first time by New York Jets legend, center. I always still got to call you the center. Nick Mangold, how you doing? Thank you for joining, my friend.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
Listen, I've been talking about this team during a 13-year playoff drought, and I can't tell you how frequently myself and other Jet fans think fondly back to the 2009, 2010 runs. I know you were also part of the 2006 playoff team, but I want to focus in because we got to talk about some positive things for Jet fans. It's been a hard few months, a hard 13 years or so. What was that 2009, 2010 team got so close to the Super Bowl in back-to-back years? What was special about those teams, and in particular, that offensive line? Because I feel like the Jets have been trying to replicate that offensive line for so long, and it has just completely eluded them and remains sort of the biggest issue on the team overall.
Yeah, the 09 and 10 teams I think were great. We had such a fun mixture of old guys, young guys, guys who had been around, who've seen how to win and everything, and the young guys who were coming through. Myself, Brick, Revis, Dave Harris. Those guys coming up get to learn under the Calvin Paces, the Sean Ellis's, the Alan Fanekas, Damian Woody's. So there was a great mixture of awesome people involved, and I think it was just we went in with having fun, and I think that was a big key. That we're still playing a kid's game, even though it's high stakes, but it's still a kid's game, and you have fun with it. So those were special teams, and that offensive line. I mean, we always joked we had 4 first rounders and this other guy. And Brandon Moore, and I think Brandon Moore was probably the best of the offensive linemen out of the 5 of us. And so it was a special group because we did have the mixture of the old, the young, Brick and I being coming in together, it was something special. And then acquiring Faneca and Damian, and I think we were able to play. I think we started all 32 games of those 2 seasons together, which is a big help. I mean, continuity across the offensive line when you can stay healthy and you can work with the same guys really makes a big difference in offensive lines. And so, keeping guys healthy and knowing keeping guys on the field is a big bonus for offensive lines. And I think that's a big key that I know that Joe Douglas and Robert Salah has talked about, really keying in on this offseason to figure out, how we keep guys on the field.
I think you mentioned Moore, and when I asked this question to Jericho Cotchery, he actually named him, and I'm curious if you'd name him or someone else to the answer to this question as well. Who was the most underrated player you ever played with on offense when you were with the Jets? Like, who all the fan favorites were. Everyone loved Tone Time, Braylon, Cotchery, all the guys who did the flashy, the more flashy stuff. But who was the most underrated guy on those offenses that you got to play with, throughout, even from 2006 up through the 2015 teams, which was also pretty good?
Yeah, I mean, if Jake already took Brandon from me, I'll go a different route then because Brandon was, I think, one of the most underrated. Starting off as a defensive lineman, converting to an offensive guard, learning the position, and then excelling at it the way that he did was pretty impressive. All while staying under the radar. But the one other than Brandon that would stick out was Blau Powell. I think he doesn't. Yeah, I think he gets credit in his run game for a little bit, but I think the biggest thing that he gets overlooked for is his pass protection. BP was unbelievable in pass protection. He was an extension of the offensive line. He would sit in meetings with us to make sure he knew what was going on. He learned a lot from LaDainian Tomlinson, which was great to see that information passed on. So, I think BP doesn't get enough credit for the effort that he made in the pass protection game. I think he got his credit for the run game and catching passes, but the work that he did to help keep the pocket clean was pretty impressive.
Yeah, he was definitely, especially towards the end of his time, like a big fan favorite and a guy I feel like that such a skill set that's hard to replicate because he could play on every single down. You never had to take him off the field. He could catch, he could run, he could pass pro. A rare thing to find a guy who could be that effective on all 3 downs. I have an inkling of what this might be, but you might have a different one. What would you say your most memorable win or moment was throughout your Jets tenure? You were, unlike many people in the current situation, you were part of like a lot of good teams and a lot of like good big wins and big games. Which one stands out to you the most when you look back on your time with the team?
I mean, it's funny. A ton of wins, and the obvious one is beating New England in New England in the playoffs. I think that was a huge win, especially no one giving us a chance, and us being able to go up there and do it. What was exciting and a lot of fun. But there were a lot of great wins, throughout the course of my career. The comeback. We had a couple of comebacks. We had an overtime win in Cleveland that went down to like the last couple of seconds of overtime. It was a lot of fun. Um, there was I don't know if we went to overtime in Detroit, but there was another fun game that we played. So there was a lot of great wins, but obviously I think beating New England in the playoffs at their house is a huge win.
Flip it to the other side here. What was the hardest player you ever had to block during your NFL career? It could be someone who was in practice on the Jets, or it could be someone that you actually played against in a real game. But who was the hardest defensive lineman that you ever had to square up against, and that you just couldn't wrap your head around a way to stop or slow down?
Yeah, I mean, every practice squad defensive tackle that I have to go against in like week 15, when the body is dead and they're just trying to make a roster spot and whatnot. So they all get the cake. But I think the biggest one was Vince Wilfork up in New England. We played against each other. I think we counted out like it was 23 times
Oh my
over the
God.
course of our two careers. And so not only the physical battle, but the mental battle. You play against the guy so often. You know what his first move and his second move is, and trying to work that third move and the chess game of it. So that was always a fun battle, and it was a respected battle between the two of us. And so that was always one I look forward to.
For right now with the Jets, there's a lot of chatter about the current team, their offensive line issues, some issues that with the offensive line coach. You see chatter on Twitter about it, which wasn't as much of a thing when you were playing. I would just say, like, I'm curious, how critical is that relationship between offensive linemen and that offensive line coach? And what do you remember about the relationship that your unit had with the different offensive line coaches while you were here? Because it was always sort of along with the defense, the top strength of the team. And I imagine having a cohesive relationship there was critical in that overall. And it just feels like, again, it's something that's kind of eluding the Jets a bit right now.